Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. I as always am Grestar and this is another reaction to a death battle, Stitch vs Rocket Raccoon. As always, the link to the original is in the description below. So we have Stitch from Disney versus Rocket Raccoon, also from Disney, but specifically Marvel. And so with the last episode where, this one was revealed, I made the prediction that Stitch would win. I'm very well aware that I don't know a lot about either of the two characters, but based upon what I do know, I had the inclination that Stitch was going to come out on top in this death battle. And it seems, based upon my readings in the comments, that most of you seem to feel the same way. Rocket definitely does have a lot of stuff that would impress me, and I'm sure that we're going to see a ton in the analyses too. But people confirmed my suspicions that Stitch is just superior in a lot of ways and has a lot more things going for him. And of course, that could change. People could always be wrong. But we'll see once we actually do watch these two analyses, one for each character. But I'm feeling pretty good about saying that Stitch is probably going to win this one. As far as my understanding of these two characters, I've seen the first two Guardians movies, the first one a few times, the second one only once, and in either case, it's been quite a while. And I've seen the Lilo and Stitch movie, the first one at least, but that was also when I was a child. And similarly, when I was a child, I saw some episodes of the TV show, the cartoon that they had, but I don't know. And so I know that he's gone on. Here's part of why I think Stitch would win, right? He just has so much more material to pull from as far as I'm aware. Because yeah, Rocket Raccoon not only has the more recent Marvel movies, but he also has a stretch of comics, right? But apparently Stitch has his movies, he has his cartoon, but then apparently there are also even comic books, manga, and anime adaptations, right? And so that's a lot of different media to pull from. And with it being varied media too, with anime and cartoons and comics and everything, a lot of different places where you would kind of need that power creep, where you need him to survive different surprises in order to keep the suspense going, in order to keep things interesting. So I think that that's a big reason why Stitch has, or seems to at this point, has more over Rocket Raccoon. Because it doesn't indicate a winner for sure, but usually the character that has more in general to pull from, just it's more possibilities for feats. And of course, feats are what we're looking for here. So I know that wasn't a lot, but with that little said, let's get to watching. So here we go for the death battle. Stitch versus Rocket. Take it away.
Stitch, Disney's extraordinary experiment 626.
Rocket, Marvel's murderous mercenary mustelid. Those are weasels and ferrets and raccoons.
Thank you.
Just because you're cute and fluffy doesn't mean you aren't the deadliest thing in the universe.
Of course. I have no idea what that cartoon was.
It's our job to analyze their weapons, armor, and skills.
So I guess he has been in more than I thought.
A death battle.
Let's do it.
In the distant reaches of outer space, the mad scientist Jumba Jukiba was accused of illegal genetic experimentation.
He took the galaxy's most fearsome, most dangerous, most absolutely purely black-hearted evil creatures and smushed them all together.
A great man with a vision, persecuted by spineless know-nothing bureaucrats.
Of course, Wiz is getting passionate.
626, though you can just call him Stitch.
Yay.
He did not.
I think I'm gonna be sick. Oh, so naughty. After being slated for termination, Stitch escapes to a distant planet.
He's 18 years old?
Oh, wait, Earth.
Crash landing in the Hawaiian island
of
Kauai, of all places. There, he'd be adopted by the Earth girl Lilo and went incognito as the ugliest dog ever.
And despite his horrific upbringing, Stitch found he had a softer side, a
Yay.
love of Elvis, and a kinship with Lilo, a devil child who didn't fit in, just like him. It wasn't long before Stitch was ready to do anything to protect his new Ohana from the alien threats coming to get him.
Ohana,
And
that
let me
means
tell
family.
you, as a fellow mad scientist, Jumba really outdid himself here. I've been meaning to dig deeper into Stitch's piecemeal alien biology for years. First of all, his fluffy exterior is entirely bulletproof, fireproof, and nearly impenetrable.
Oh, this comes with a catch. His molecular structure is so dense, he can't swim. Sucks he landed in Hawaii of all places.
Stitch can crawl on walls, hear a whisper from miles away, and scream so loud he'll blow you to kingdom come.
He's strong enough to lift 3,000 times his own body weight and can spin dash so fast he'll burst into flames.
His eyesight is also incredible. He's got night, X-ray, and infrared vision, and can
Handy.
even zoom in hundreds of times over.
Which
Even
how?
better, he can hawk loogies like a friggin' machine gun. His spin is conductive enough to short-circuit electronics, stick objects together like glue, and even dissolve solid rock. Oh, and he's somehow a genius, too. The dude knows molecular physics and can build entire mech suits and spaceships out of junk in seconds.
You
Wow,
wouldn't
okay.
think it from his everything, but Stitch is a genius with a brain comparable to a supercomputer. The world's most powerful supercomputer right now is Hewlett-Packard's Frontier, which can
Okay.
make 1 quintillion calculations a second.
Comparing
That's a
Stitch
lot.
to Frontier is frankly a massive lowball.
See, Stitch was programmed to have Jumba's own intelligence, and Jumba's IQ has been compared to that of an entire galaxy combined.
I've
Really?
conducted my own genetic analysis to determine Stitch's alien progenitors. His DNA includes traces of the manglioid of Meridian 4, the goo goblin booger beast, the people-eating pus monkey, the deadly disemboweler, the boiling tongueoid, and the bottom-feeding scum sucker.
See.
Sounds like your ex-wife. Am I right?
No, Wiz, what the hell? That's such a messed up thing to say about her. Be better.
I'm so disappointed in you.
You
I
can
get
make
it,
those
Wiz,
jokes
I get
when
it.
you start paying the alimony.
Well, Stitch's incredible buffet of alien DNA is supported by a power cell embedded in his body, fueled
Okay.
by the energy of 2 colliding planets.
Wow.
Huh? Colliding planets! Are you coming back? No?
You.
Okay.
I'm
He's
sorry.
got a jetpack, freeze ray, grenades, and a Seismotronic 200, which can make sandwiches gigantic.
Ah.
Oh, and shrink enemies. That's cool too.
Oh, yeah,
Stitch
yeah.
was a one
Pretty
fluff
handy.
army, and he proved it when everyone from the Galactic Federation to the dastardly Dr. Hamsterville came to pick a fight with him.
Including all of Jumba's experiments. Yeah, 626 isn't just some random number. There are hundreds of these little bastards running around. More troublemaking cousins to add to his growing ohana.
That's
Well, he had
right.
to pacify many of them first, like Slushy, who can create a snowstorm that covered all of Kauai.
Or
Wow.
Richter, who can split the Earth in half and shatter planet-busting asteroids.
And Jumba
Earth
stated
in
that
half?
Stitch was the most destructive, unstoppable monster the universe has ever seen. Even more
Wow.
dangerous than Holio, who can create a black hole large enough to consume the entire universe.
Speaking of
Okay.
black holes, in the anime, yes, there's a Lilo and Stitch anime. Stitch once piloted a ship carrying a supernova bomb strong enough to wipe out a galaxy and flew it into a black hole. It and the black hole both exploded on top of him, and he
Uh-huh.
popped out no worse for the wear. You know, like
Just
you do.
fine.
Another time, he piloted a ship to a different black hole in less than 2 minutes. It's unclear exactly how far this was, but the average distance between stars is about 5 light years.
That means his ship would have had to have been flying at over 1 million times the speed of light.
And when he's
Right.
filled with love for his Ohana, the power cell inside Stitch surges incalculably. He used this to defeat Dark End, an experiment explicitly made to be stronger than Stitch, who had just defeated 4 Stitch clones on his own.
And
Oh.
Stitch completely annihilated him. He knocked Dark End into outer space so hard he dislodged a city-sized space station. You know, like you do.
He's even managed to worm his way into completely different Disney properties.
Oh,
I forgot about
we don't
these.
have another Deadpool on our hands, do we?
With Stitch around, Lilo, Nani, and the inhabitants of Earth couldn't be safer.
Surf's up for everyone's
Yay.
favorite blue fuzzball of death.
Cool. Lots of impressive feats there.
Somewhere
Let's see what
in the
Rocket
Black
has.
Mountain Hills of Dakota, there was a young boy named Rocky Raccoon.
Rocket, Raccoon, Rocket, not Rocky. That's the Beatles song he's named after.
Well, I have wasted a lot of time on some very specific
Oh.
research.
Oh
In fact,
no,
it's
Boomstick.
just Rocket. Despite his startling resemblance to the resourceful dumpster diving mammal, Rocket originates from the alien planet Half-World, which served as an asylum
not a
for the
raccoon.
criminally insane ruled over by alien humanoids.
Oh.
Along with many of Half-World's cutesy inhabitants, Rocket was subjected to cybergenetic modifications by his overlords.
All with the purpose of being Half-World's warden, Ranger
see.
Rocket.
Rocket's
Okay.
mutations make him smarter, stronger, faster, and tougher than your average garbage goblin.
His cybernetic skeleton is connected to artificial vertebrae and neural implants, allowing him to dodge gunfire and laser beams, survive an explosion the size of a city block, and keep up with supervillains like Kraven and Venom.
Alongside pals Lila the Otter and Walrus the... Rocket battled the mercenary Blackjack O'Hare and killer clowns and saved the day time and time again. I bet
That
you're
clown is
wondering
freaky
what
looking.
the hell
Not a
this
fan.
has to do with Guardians of the Galaxy.
In a convoluted editorial effort to reboot his character, Rocket left Half-World to become a mercenary and had his
Okay.
memories suppressed.
I
After
see.
a betrayal by his otter lover, a different one, he has a thing for otters, Rocket was sent to jail. Space jail.
Space
And
jail,
prison
yeah.
changes a man. Gunn was the Saturday morning cartoon character of yore. He was a felon, cynical and hardened by the criminal justice system. The space criminal justice system.
Rocket suffered not only from his penal servitude, but the trauma of his brutal genetic modifications.
Well, yeah.
And a lingering
Imagine
sense
that.
of alienation. It was in this personal hell where he'd meet a bunch of a-holes who would soon be his new teammates. Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, and of course, his best pal Groot.
And together they were the Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yay!
defending the free peoples of the cosmos from all manner of alien menace. For a price, of course.
Of course.
Though,
Oh, yeah,
unlike
mercenary,
some
yeah.
of the powerhouses on his team, Rocket's raccoon body is...
I told you he's not a raccoon. He was created on Half-World and is the last of an entire race of raccoon-like aliens. He just happens to look like an Earth raccoon.
Don't lecture me on raccoons, Wiz. I'm an expert. Been fighting the bastards for years.
Have you
Did
now?
You know their tiny little bandit masks are for reducing glare to enhance night vision? They can hear noises as quiet as earthworms digging underground. And about 2/3 of the sensory perception part of their cerebral cortex is devoted to their tactile impulses. That's why they grab shit with their tiny
Yeah.
little hands.
All perfectly suited to a nimble, stealthy glass cannon like Rocket.
We actually have a
Yeah,
raccoon that keeps
'cause
visiting.
He's a raccoon.
As
It's
I
very
was
cute.
saying, Rocket became the team's resident grease monkey, specializing in all things technology and engineering. And fittingly, his specialty in combat is firearms.
Yep, that sounds like my cue, Wiz. Rockets built giant mechs, cobbled together random junk for an improvised flamethrower, and casually slapped together a bomb strong enough to destroy a moon. Oh, and he's got every kind of hand cannon imaginable. Pistols, machine guns, miniguns, rifles, rocket launchers, plasma guns, laser guns, and my favorite, the melon popper, where melon means head and pop means... kabam!
That
Yep.
melon belonged to a Super Skrull, one of the deadliest warriors in the Marvel Universe. With the combined abilities of the Fantastic Four, including the Thing, who survived a blast from the power cosmic that could split a planet in two.
Yeah, Rocket's weapons are crazy, like the Rampart armed phasic cannon.
still seen,
which
like,
utilizes
nothing, though,
cold fusion
comparable,
and could melt the
you know?
face off the Mad Titan himself, Thanos.
The same Thanos who is strong enough to survive a supermassive black hole 4 light years across, and came out with only light scratches.
Okay,
The
that
very
part
same
is the-
Purple Shrek
I think that's
who's
the most
battled
powerful thing we've seen
Universe
so far.
Busters and beyond, like Thor, Hulk, and Odin. If Thanos can walk through attacks from a dude who can shake the multiverse, and Rocket's guns can hurt him, I'm gonna need one of those puppies under my pillow ASAP.
And
Yeah, that's
similar
fair.
weaponry to what Rockets use can operate down to the picosecond, which is 1/trillionth of a second.
He can access all of these goodies at any time from his orbital stash. A remote-controlled satellite that'll deliver anything he wants lickety-split.
Rocket can
That's
zoom
cool.
through the sky on his rocket skates, project force fields, teleport with a portable AI, melt through solid metal with acid, and even hack foreign technology.
Anything from a prison to a planet to an entire galactic empire. Rocket's the most dangerous not raccoon who's totally a raccoon in the whole universe.
And he's proven it with the Guardians. He's saved Earth at least 11 times, cured Ego the Living Planet of a lice infestation, and held his own against an entire world trying to kill him all at once.
I
He
see.
even devised a plan that ultimately stopped Dormammu, the lord of the friggin' dark dimension. No wonder Star-Lord called Rocket the greatest tactical mind he's ever met, even if sometimes he has a tendency to run in guns blazing.
Though he'd always be a wisecracking son of a bitch, his time with the Guardians softened his edges. He learned to enjoy life again, and even made
That's
it back to Half-World to
good.
send that bastard Blackjack O'Hare packing.
And even though he clearly is one, whatever you do, don't call him a raccoon, because there's nowhere in the galaxy to hide from this gun-toting mother flarker.
Fair enough. All right, well, there were the two
All right,
combatants.
the
so-
combatants are set, and we've run the data through all possibilities.
It's time for a death battle! And pause. Okay, so I do still think that Stitch is going to win. The one thing, like, there's one weakness of Stitch's, which is water, his inability to swim, which seems kind of odd that they wouldn't have exploited that at some point. And then the only thing that Raccoon seemed to have in his arsenal was whatever gun or guns could actually harm the likes of Thanos, you know? Because if Thanos could survive a black hole that was like that big, and you can imagine like how much like force is involved in that, right? then I would imagine it would be able to harm Stitch, because Stitch's biggest durability thing, as far as I was aware, was going into that black hole, surviving it and the massive bomb exploding, and then him just being out, like, being perfectly okay. I mean, but here's another thing, like, he seemed, from the clip and from what they said, Stitch seemed perfectly okay after that, whereas Thanos, from his black hole, was injured. Not, like, terribly, but he was injured. And so, that means for, like, Stitch's feat, that's the minimum, you know? Or, like, I guess not the minimum, but he's fine at that point. We don't know at what point beyond that he actually would start taking, like, big physical damage. So it's really just that, you know, the weapons that could hurt Stitch, like, go in Rocket's favor. But usually, weapons of one combatant can harm the other combatant. It's not often where I'm like, okay, well, there's one thing that could possibly hurt this other person. And so that's that's without taking into account, like, relative movement speeds, dodging things, all that kind of stuff. And to be fair, as far as that is concerned, I'm not sure about a lot of Stitch's physical qualities. I don't know how fast he can move or how fast he can dodge, whereas I know that Rocket Raccoon dodged laser beams. And again, that doesn't mean that he's moving or dodging at the speed of light. It depends on, like, how far he moved and the time it took the laser to, like, launch and hit a certain, but, you know, like, there's stuff to consider. It's how fast did he move relative to the laser beam. That's what you need. And I don't know the answer to that. But I just don't know Stitch's own movement stuff. I know that he can, like, react and move quickly enough to, like, spit machine gun bullets out of the air kind of thing, right? But that's not the same as, like, a laser. Not to say that he hasn't done any of that, it's just not coming to mind right now. I know they did bring up Stitch, like, flying from one black hole to another and how that was ridiculously fast, but of course that's not his own movement speed. That's him piloting, you know, a spaceship, right? Still, he has to be able to think and react at those speeds so he can, like, dodge asteroids and such. It's just not... I don't know how I can really use that beyond that point. They both are geniuses, but I would give Stitch the advantage in terms of intelligence, considering that he is apparently on par with Jumba, who was as smart as an entire galaxy's worth of people, basically, right? And... I mean, it depends on the galaxy, I suppose, that you're looking at, but if I were to say, like, his galaxy, clearly there are other big brainers there. And then Stitch, like, here's another thing that I want to give in Stitch's favor, because for durability, I did have the whole, like, black hole bomb thing. But there was also that experiment who was specifically built to be stronger than him and took out 4 Stitch clones. I had assumed at once on its own, but either way, it was 4 Stitch clones individually, if nothing else. And that's still impressive, right? But then Stitch was able to beat them by using, like, the power of family. And at first I was thinking that wouldn't really come into play in a death battle because that's, like, an outside thing. But if Rocket were to threaten, in Stitch's mind at the very least, his family by, like, blowing up his planet or something with the universe, etc., right? Stitch could take that personally and activate his super family powers and, you know, get that power boost to be, I assume, even stronger, even more durable, all of that stuff. I wonder how Stitch, because again, like, super intelligent, right? Like, they could both build mechs, but Stitch a lot faster and, you know, in a cave with a box of scraps. And, you know, Rocket, they didn't give, like, specifications for the mech that he built, but it looked like he had way more polished parts and I assume had, you know, taken time. They did say that he built, like, a flamethrower out of scraps, but I have to assume that Stitch could do much the same, and I don't even think, like, a flamethrower would really harm him. But I was just going to say that, like, he's smart enough that he could probably analyze Rocket's weaknesses and be able to, or, like, what he's using and be able to counteract that. And I was wondering if, like, his spit if that might be able to disrupt the Rocket's connection with, like, the satellite that, you know, transfers him weapons, that kind of thing. I don't even think that would be necessary, but that's, like, the one thing that Rocket has that, you know, gives him any sort of, you know, survivability against Stitch, as far as I've been able to tell. Stitch just seems to have the advantage in, like, every other regard. As far as durability, as far as physical strength, as far as intelligence. I don't think that Rocket could, like, rip Stitch apart with his bare hands. I think the Stitch absolutely could rip Rocket apart, you know? It's just, if Rocket does not get off, he would need to get off killer blows with his super weapons. And that's the only chance he has, and I just don't think that that's likely enough. And you might bring up again, like, the Stitch water weakness, but if we're taking a look at, I mean, this is a death battle where we take a look at the characters fighting and who would win the majority of the time. And the majority of the time, you're not going to be able to use, like, an ocean to your advantage like that. It just wouldn't happen the majority of the time. So even though that is like a valid weakness, it's not something that I think you can or should consider seriously for the sake of a death battle. Unless you're the kind, like, you know, if Rocket had teleportation abilities or whatever, like maybe, or, you know, someone who could create tsunamis, sure. They could potentially figure out that that's his weakness and use that against him in the moment. But if you're just, you know, Rocket, he doesn't have those kinds of capabilities. So I don't think that that needs to be factored into this. So Stitch has the advantage. Stitch is going to win this death battle, and play. Like, just so much more versatility, too, as far as what he's been up against, I would dare argue, considering, like, first, he has a lot of different, like, shows and games and everything to pull from, and you okay, buddy? They bring that back. Oh my. I don't even know what he did there.
Come to Papa.
Oh. Oh, what are you summoning?
Oh, this my Thanos Buster. It's hunting season now, Buzzball.
Oh. Huh. What was that? Oh, just it hurt him and that was blood. Okay.
Huh? You gotta be kidding me.
Oh. So not spit, but teeth. Oh no, he didn't make it. The poor guy. There we have it. Okay.
You know, brutally murdering ice cream guy wasn't necessary, Wiz, but
No, it
I felt it was an artful touch.
Though similar in many ways, Stitch and Rocket's fighting styles were polar opposites.
Stitch was more than strong enough to tear Rocket apart physically, while Rocket's guns were powerful enough to kill people even stronger than Stitch. So the question was simple. If both of them only needed one hit to win, who would get the killing blow first?
It all came down to speed. Rocket has dodge lasers, and his guns could operate down to the picosecond, 1/trillionth of a second.
But Stitch's supercomputer brain could operate down to the quintillionth of a second, a million times faster.
That's very
And his
different.
ability to pilot that ship at over 1,000,000 times the speed of light meant that he more than had the reaction speed to dodge anything Rocket threw at him.
That's
Rocket's
very
technical
different. You need
brilliance meant
physical
he could
speed to
keep
be able to
Stitch
move.
at bay with tricks for a while, but he couldn't reliably seal the deal. Despite being a little blue goblin, Stitch usually stays level-headed in a fight, whereas because Rocket can be way more impulsive.
And frankly, Stitch is probably even smarter considering he has the combined IQ of an entire galaxy.
Well, yeah,
One slip up from Rocket is all Stitch would need to end the fight.
Rocket's arsenal was absolutely bonkers, to be sure, but Stitch's superior speed, physical strength, and unbelievable intelligence gave him the win.
Looks like this Rocket's blasting off again!
That's a
The
different
winner is... What's going on?
claps for Stitch.
Oh, there's a turkey here too! Wait, you gotta leave the turkey behind!
The winner is Stitch.
Yay, Stitch! Very cool. Okay.
Thanks for watching. Stay
You're welcome.
tuned. We have a new Death Battle releasing every 2 weeks this year.
All
Click
right.
the join button to get new perks and extra content. Planet level members even see Death Battles before
Well,
anyone
let's see
else, so
who's
don't
up
miss out.
next. Next time on Death Battle. Naruto versus Darth... I mean, not Naruto, but a Naruto character, right? Versus Darth Vader. I know... Who's that? Toby? Obito. I pray to whatever god might exist that he has a nickname of Toby or something, or I'm gonna sound real stupid. I'm going to Google right now. Okay, thank goodness. Look, when I Googled Naruto Toby, he's the first person who pops up, so I'm going to say that I'm not crazy. And I haven't seen that. I haven't watched Shippuden, okay? So, like, go easy on me. Alright, so that's an interesting matchup versus Darth Vader. I have no idea, like, what the two have in common to the point where you'd put them against each other. But, like, that undeniably is him versus Darth Vader. So that's really interesting. Frankly, I would hope that Vader would win. And, like, the fact that they're going up against, like, when you have Vader versus someone from an anime, I feel like everyone would jump to the anime person winning. But this makes me think that Vader would win. And I know that Vader can get crazy, like, the Star Wars universe can get crazy outside of the movies, you know? Even if you're not going into the, I forget what it's called all of a sudden, but the stuff that Disney made non-canon, you know, basically. Even if you don't go into that, like, there's still crazy stuff. So I would definitely be rooting for Darth Vader for this next time. So fingers crossed, but, you know, we'll have to see what happens, of course, because I know nothing about Toby, or Obito, or whatever. So about this death battle, so I was right, yay me. I don't disagree with the conclusion, obviously, because, like, I tried to weigh out all their feats and such. And, like, I can totally admit or, like, accept that the weapons that Rocket has are more powerful than I was giving them credit, because, like, I was saying, yeah, they were able to harm oh my gosh Thanos. I could not remember Thanos' name in that moment. They were able to harm Thanos. I didn't realize, I guess, that they were able to kill Thanos. But, like, yeah, you know, I was willing to say, like, yeah, those things could hurt Stitch for sure. But I didn't think, just, you know, because I didn't think they could kill Thanos, I didn't really think they could kill Stitch. Or at the very least, that that was, like, one thing that Rocket had going for him, and it wasn't enough. And it did prove to be not enough. But, like, the point is, I can accept that they would indeed be able to kill Stitch, if they, you know, Rocket really had the right opportunity. The stuff that I don't like in the conclusion, and it's not even necessarily that I disagree, but, like, I would need them to clarify a lot more than they did in the conclusion for it to make sense to me, because they're like, sure, Rocket can dodge laser beams, but Stitch can think really fast, and he was able to pilot a ship really fast, but those are not the same as movement speed, and they just didn't bring up anything for his movement speed. So, like, yeah, I brought up myself that he can think really quickly and that he can pilot a ship really quickly, and that does take reaction, but it's not the same. Is it the same as movement speed? I mean, I know you have to have, like, you could twitch reactions, right? It's not just can your brain comprehend what's going on at those speeds, but yes, you do need to be able to, like, move your little joystick, right? To be able to dodge oncoming asteroids or whatever. But, when you're piloting something like that, I would think it's a matter of sensitivity where you really don't need to move that much. It's just, can you, like, physically twitch fast enough, you know? But that fast twitching does not mean the same thing as, like, you know, you can run really fast. That's where I need the clarification. Like, yes, there's movement involved, but I don't understand at least how you would calculate, you know? I mean, maybe that's their issue too. They don't know how you would calculate based upon that. But they just figure, well, if you can twitch react at those speeds, you would just be able to move, period, at those kinds of speeds. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe that's all it is. It seems different to me, but maybe that's what they're going for. So, fair enough. Because again, don't disagree with the results, I just don't understand that, and so like the conclusion left me unsatisfied because I still had questions about the death battle. So now let's talk about the animation itself. It was one of those interesting things where, like, depending on how they made the animation, it would be like shaky ground because they put it on like a water-infested place. And I know part of that, I don't know if it appeals at all to like Raccoon's history, but it definitely goes back to Stitch just to like, you know, living in Hawaii, right? And so there's of course the ocean. But, you know, what I was talking about was like the majority of the time, the water wouldn't really come into play. And while it barely came into play here, you know, it wasn't anything that got Stitch killed, right? So it was fine. But like, imagine if Stitch had lost this fight and they had said it was because of the water weakness, you know? Like, hands would be thrown. And so it's interesting that they do that with animations sometimes where, they're not like breaking the rules of Death Battle or anything like that. But it can, like, I've seen people complain about, like, oh, well, this person shouldn't have won because when this happened, it shouldn't have done this, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of times it was just like, yeah, those are just artistic liberties that were taken for the sake of the animation itself. It's not actually how that would play out, you know? Or it wouldn't necessarily play out that way. It's not like that was the pivotal deciding factor kind of thing. That's just what they decided to do to make the animation flashy, to, you know, like, pay respect to certain things about the characters, etc. But it was just, I don't remember exactly if I was making a certain point with that, but it was interesting that they did that, and of course, if it had gone a different way, yeah, it could have been bad, but it didn't, so it was fine. The biggest thing that I thought was lacking in this animation was the speed of it. It's not that it wasn't, like, smooth, because it seemed smooth enough, but, like, movements just seemed sluggish to me. I don't know. And here's the thing, like, with fast-moving characters, or even not just fast-moving characters, but, like, things that should move quickly, like, if you're shooting a bolt of energy, I feel like that should move pretty fast. And it just did not seem to in this animation. I can understand using not even slow-mo, but just, like, relatively slow speeds, like, relative to how fast a bullet would move, you know? For the sake of emphasis, to show how quickly people are, like, you know, processing information, or how quickly they themselves are moving in relation to the bullet. Because, like, we have a general idea of how, just to go on that example, we have a general idea of how fast a bullet moves. And so if we're seeing a bullet move, like, really slowly compared to how it should, and then characters are, like, running alongside or past it kind of thing, we have an idea that those characters are moving incredibly fast, right? I didn't get the feeling that that was what was going on in this animation. It just felt rather sluggish to me. Not stiff in the same way that I thought, like, Skyrim versus Dark Souls animation was, where just the movements themselves seemed, like, choppy, like, inhuman. It was just, like, unpolished movement, you know? This was unpolished, but in a different way. Or it felt unpolished, I should say, in a different way, just because I don't know. Yeah, the speeds. That's all it really was to me. It just pulled me out of it. That's not, of course, to say that I didn't like the fight, that I didn't like the animation. I did enjoy it. I thought that there were a lot of clever things done, as far as, you know, how they moved around and actually used the space. I was going to bring this up too, but I just forgot. Interesting as far as, like, you know, how they're not breaking the rules, but it almost seems like they might, because, you know, like, surrounded by water and all that. But also, Rocket just he seemed to already have, like, all of these giant laser turrets. And he was, like, you know, fixing his ship or whatever there, so there was that. Sorry for that tangent, my mind's bouncing back and forth. It always does to an extent, but it seems like especially so right now. I'm trying to, like, cling to thoughts, but they're fleeting. I thought the voice acting was good. For Rocket especially, I enjoyed Stitch's, but it was more like the quality of it. It was, like, almost just quieter, like, more beneath the surface of the audio track, you know? I wish they'd brought that out a little bit more, and then I think it would have just been better. Like, even as it was, just bring it out a little bit more, and I think it would have been better. But the banter, especially between the two, I thought was amusing. Just bringing back, like, Stitch saying something that we, as an audience, have no idea what's going on, but of course it would offend Rocket. It would make him vomit, you know? Like, it was amusing. And some of the angles of the shots were really cool, like when Stitch was first flying out with that, like, you know, homemade rocket ship, right? That, you know, ended up piercing Rocket Raccoon. That was really cool. Things like that. So there were just bits of movement with the sprites that I didn't love, and that if they were intentional in some regard, you know, I wish that they had been made more intentional, like more obviously so. Because instead of it seeming like it was intended to have that effect of like relativistic speeds. It just seemed like it was slow and awkward to me in certain parts. Both with like energy blast movements, because like sure, in some like media, they're like laser guns or whatever that do have odd movements or like weird arcs to them because like with the green globs, you know, like sure, I can accept some of that. But then some of the character movements too, like Stitch jumping up into the air and doing a somersault and everything, just seemed awkward and slow. I appreciated how Wiz was able to like shine in this analysis because of course it's like one mad scientist talking about another mad scientist and his experiments, right? And that was really funny. And of course like the disagreements between like Wiz and Boomstick, I felt like Wiz was just trying to fit in, trying to like buddy up with Boomstick there, and he hit a sore spot with insulting his ex-wife. And just like letting that awkwardness sit and like fester. It was a funny touch to this death battle. It didn't really like, wasn't necessarily applicable to what was going on. I mean, obviously it wasn't out of nowhere. It did make sense within the context, but it wasn't necessary, but it was funny. Similar to what Boomstick pointed out at the end, like the poor ice cream guy didn't have to kill him, but it was an artistic touch that they decided to go with, so I can appreciate it. So while this death battle wasn't perfect in my eyes, I did enjoy it, and I'm glad that I was right. I wish they cleared up more in the conclusion than they did, because I felt like they just didn't touch on the things that I needed them to touch on, to really clear up some of my questions that I had. But it was a fun death battle, so let me know what you all thought about this death battle in the comments below, whether you liked it, whether you disliked it, what you thought about this or that, etc., so on and so forth. And next time we'll be watching Vader versus Obito, or I guess it was Obito versus Vader, was how they put it, right? So I hope you're looking forward to that. Right now, I'm leaning toward Darth Vader winning, but that's really because I just know that Star Wars can get crazy, and I don't really know what, yeah, I don't know what Obito gets up to. But, you know, I'll read the comments and see what you all think because, you know, you're pretty good in general about, like, if nothing else, you let me know the most crazy feats that you can think of for the two characters. You know, that's what I tend to see. Or, like, just how many different, like, media they're part of, you know, whether, like, comics or anime or manga or cartoons, right? So that's always very enlightening for me as far as the characters, so I have a better idea going into the death battle. It really does influence my opinion quite a bit. So of course, I'm gonna be looking again. I mean, it's nice when I'm catching up with death battles, I can't do that because people could actually just straight up spoil the fight. But when people are discussing like who might win before the death battle ever comes out, it's fair game because y'all don't know who's gonna be the winner, so it's not a spoiler, it's just I'm engaging with the community. Anyway, hope y'all have a wonderful day or night or whatever it is. But yeah, with that, we're calling it here, so have a good one, everybody.